game underway.
Right.
All right, opening hands here. Not the best for Mengucci. Missing both colors. Does have the Fabled Passage to go digging, though, for either the red or the blue. Faceless Haven, an excellent way to finish out games, especially dodging removal and the like, but doesn't like that hand. It's going to ship it back and keep a hand here with Maze Mind Tome in it. Going to have to send back 2 cards. So multi-5, not a great start here for Mengu. On the other side of things, Ken Yukuhiro, pretty pleased with his keep. And we'll be able to go turn 1 Goose. Who doesn't love a turn 1 Goose?
Everyone loves it. Yeah, not a great start for a multi-5, but Maze Mind Tome is one of those cards that kind of unmulligans you, kind of like Showdown of the Skull when we were in our first round together, Ailey, but it is still something that takes a lot of time. Luckily, Ken Yukuhiro's deck does give you a relatively large amount of time, Azika's Chariot kind of being the exception where that card hits fast and it hits pretty powerfully, but otherwise a relatively slow deck that should give Mengu some time to draw out of this.
So starts things off with the Maze Mind Tome. Is going to scry in response to this Drannith Magistrate, which essentially cuts off the ability to cast Stomp and then the Bone Crusher Giant, unless it can be dealt with via a Frostbite here. But the Frostbite's going to be aimed at the Gilded Goose instead of going after the Drannith Magistrate.
Yep, the Drannith Magistrate, not 100% ideal in this matchup. It is very good against adventures, like we saw once again in round 1, it just being incredibly impressive, but still does plenty of things. Really makes Andrea Mengucci's Foretell a lot worse. So foretelling Alrund's Epiphany, foretelling Saw Coming. Yep. And then as well as the 8 adventure creatures. So it's definitely not nothing.
Yeah, like we mentioned in the first round where we saw the Drannith Magistrate playing such a pivotal role, it doesn't really have any bad matchups. And here we're seeing, again, it's just able to make is a tempo deck question, okay, can I actually foretell this? Am I going to be able to cast it when it's relevant later? Can I stomp here and have a giant later? It's all the questions that you have going on in the back of your mind. But for the time being, Andrea Mengucci is just happy to develop his mana, get down Galazeth Prismari, and start taking over the game, hopefully from the skies. But if Ken Yukuhiro does find a 5th land, he's going to have Elspeth Conquers Death come down to deal with that.
Yeah, Elspeth Conquers Death looking great. And even this Azika's Chariot, pretty troublesome here. Just being able to, if we can get another creature, of course, down to animated, that 3/4 doesn't line up that well against it. So could be a tricky card for Andrea to deal with.
Now, one thing I quite like here with the current setup that Mengucci has is Galazeth Prismari has the ability to make any of your artifacts tap for mana instead of sacrificing them. So that Maze Mind Tome, if you missed it, helped to cast the Stomp there.
Yeah, a really cool synergy there. And really the main reason why we see a lot more tomes than, let's say, Expressive Iteration, for example. We only see one of that card in Andrea Mengucci's deck, and that card is phenomenal. Maybe one of the best cards in Strixhaven. We're seeing it in older formats, Modern, Legacy even. And so normally you would think, yeah, I want to be playing that card in my Izzet deck, but Maze Mind Tome working that well with Prismari that you want to play it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something you sometimes forget you can do. It's like, oh, wait, I can cast more things. This is awesome. So
exactly,
a very sweet addition to this deck, besides the advantage of being able to draw cards every couple of turns. So here's an interesting possibility, being able to crew and then blink. I don't know if we can do that all in the same time.
Yeah, no, I don't think that works there because you have to choose what to blink right away. And since it goes on the stack, Azika's Chariot is not a creature on the stack, so I don't think that will work. But even just Yorion next turn, if we can find a land, and I think that's what Ken is really looking for, being able to go Yorion, blink out Charming Prince, and Azika's Chariot if it were to live in this attack is really scary.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying. So here's Azika's Chariot. Up and running, going to copy the cat token. And Mengucci will draw a card, finds a land off the top of the library. Will we see a trade here for the pesky chariot that keeps creating kitties? We will indeed.
Makes sense there. Getting that off the battlefield, a really important thing to do. From Andrea Mengucci's side, just having to deal with all of these 2/2s with spot removal is not what you want to be doing. So token generating is actually quite strong against these blue-red decks.
Yeah, Ken won't be too sad about that, though, as we do see the second copy of Esseka's Chariot in hand there, along with the copy of Sky Noodle. But Faceless Haven now, when you're flooding, what you gonna do? Let your lands do the hitting for you. And swinging in here for 7 points of damage. What's Ken Yukuhiro gonna do except take it?
And with Andrea Mengucci mulliganing to 5 here, it almost seems like this really isn't a problem, you know? Ken is already down to 7. Maybe he can go back up to 10 with this food, but this game is a lot closer than I thought it would be originally with that mulligan. But this Maze Mind Tome has just really kept him in the game.
Yeah, it's put in a lot of good work here. Glass Casket off the top of the library. That's not going to do much for Ken Yukuhiro right now. And Esseka's Chariot could potentially be countered here if Maze Mind Tome behaves. Nope, just a land.
Yeah, and that's leading the game to look like Faithless Haven is going to be kind of a non-issue from this point. We see Andrea Mengucci still at a very healthy life total, so all he is thinking is aggression, aggression, aggression. Just try to get this game finished before these powerful Yorion decks just completely gain control. And I mean, Andrea Mengucci knows that more than anyone about a good old value Yorion deck, because I'm not going to lie, I think this may be the first time we haven't seen him on his classic Esperoni Doom Foretold list. Decided to finally go against it. And, you know, it kind of wild he's up against another non-Sultai Ultimatum Yorion deck. We don't see a lot of those in the metagame these days.
Yeah, it seems like quite a few players who, you know, we've come to expect to play a certain archetype have, you know, done a complete 180 and played something out of character, I'd like to say. But yeah, it kind of feels like this might be the weekend for experimentation to some degree, especially for those who are trying their best to catch up to the players that are in the lead right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a little bit of the fact that as late as we are into the standard metagame, it just shows how dynamic standard is right now, where you still are seeing metagame shifts even this late into the format, which is really cool and impressive.
Yeah, it's been a pretty healthy standard for the last couple of months. So
agreed.
But I won't lie, I am very much looking to Adventure in the Forgotten Realms because we need some dice rolling in our in our lives.
Oh yeah, give me that
wonderful.
D20. I'm gonna roll it all the time with standard. I'm looking forward to that as well.
Oh, Andrea Mengucci certainly is not looking forward to more cats on the other side of this battlefield, and doesn't have much defense against them right now. So it's going to take 4. It's going to have to deal with another cat token, and won't be able. Well, what does he find that helps him? A stomp would help him win on the crackback?
A stomp would be absolutely GG. Goldspan Dragon would do it as well. And I think the main thing from this situation is Ken is going to probably put that Yorion into his hand, or I mean, just an empty glass casket here, which actually I do like that play a little bit better, because now if you play Yorion, then you could kind of clean up this Brazen Borrow. But that is a really sad late game turn, and with that counter spell, it seems like we're at a high enough life total here where we can crack back for 8, it looks like, at most, with Andrea Mengucci being at 13. That saw us coming. I think just locked it up for a game 1 victory from Andrea Mengucci.
Yeah, so here we go, in for 6. Sword coming will counter anything that Ken Yukuhiro tries to deploy, as he has been stuck on 4 lands for a very long time. So opposite problems here for these players. Ken Yukuhiro not able to unlock land number 5. And Andrea Mengucci just doesn't have a shortage thereof.
Yeah, and very importantly, it was stuck on 4 lands without even being able to cast Binding. If you could cast Binding, the clock flips, because you were able to kill Galazeth Prismari that last turn, and then Brazen Borrower had to connect multiple times, I think even 3 times, because he was at 7, and then the race is in Ken's favor. So really unlucky there from Ken, and Andrea Mengucci has got to be feeling great to take a game 1 win with a mull to 5 on the play.
Yeah, that was certainly a very difficult game to win for Mengucci, but, you know, he just drew better. And luckily for him, that Ken Yukuhiro didn't find that swamp. Otherwise, like you said, that game would have been a completely different event.
Absolutely. And then from Andrea Mengucci's side, we see this a lot against Yorion-style decks. Brazen Borrower is not very good because, well, you don't really want to be bouncing things of your opponent and then giving him value again. We saw it, kind of close out the game there, and it was a good draw at the time. But for the most part, not really what you're looking to do to counteract Yorion. All you want to be doing, especially against the non-blue versions that can't bring in disputes, is just make sure you can pressure and then counter everything. So I love the bringing in a stroke and a saw coming.
Awesome. Let's jump in here to check out game number 2 between Ken Yukuhiro and Andrea Mengucci, both looking for their first win of the weekend. On the plus side, we will see that one of these players will get their first win, unless how can we have a tie? Ties are possible, but not in this matchup.
yeah, I don't think possible with the cards that these two players are playing, but that would be exciting.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So here we're going to see Bone Crusher Giant take care of the Gilded Goose, who makes the food on his way out. And there is a much better looking hand for Ken Yukuhiro. Has all 3 colors, so Abzan online. And on the other side of things, this hand is also looking very good here for Mengucci, who's happy to just pass the turn back, holding up the Essence Scatter or perhaps the Petty Theft.
Yeah, really solid reactive hands from both players. So this is going to come down to, unlike the last game where it was just kind of a blowout because Ken couldn't draw lands, they both have access to a lot of things. So it's shaping up to be a good game.
Yep, Maze Mind Tome down. Andrea Mengucci values the interaction that he has available to him, so Galazeth Prismari is going to hang out for just a little while longer. As the turn passes back to Ken Yukuhiro, who is just going to cycle the Endartha Triumph for this turn.
Yeah, now you get to that spot from the Yorion side where you're like, okay, now there is a tome on Andrea Mengucci's battlefield. So this kind of, puts the pressure on where you're like, if I just do nothing, Andrea Mengucci is just going to keep drawing cards. But if I pressure something repeatedly, then, Andrea Mengucci at least has to make a choice. Do I draw a card or do I just interact with whatever I'm doing? So this is where we're kind of going to see that shift where Ken is just going to be jam, jam, jam. Otherwise, the tome will just kind of take over. Draw 4 cards is a big deal with 1 card.
Yeah, very much so. Polakranos resolves. He's on the battlefield. You could see Andrea Mengucci consider the Essence Scatter there for a brief moment, but I think he's more interested in bouncing Polakranos before he gets to attack here.
Yep, absolutely. And if Andrea did not have Brazen Borrower, I think we would have saw an immediate Essence Scatter, even though it's kind of awkward that it can just escape back later. But this matchup is so tempo orientated from Mengucci's side that bringing back a Polukranos at any point is just not that great because you don't really have the time to cast a 6-drop too often.
Certainly not. Essica's Chariots is something that Mengucci can't deal with at the moment. Oh, actually, I lie. He totally can with the Mystical Dispute in hand there.
Yeah,
is that available to him?
It didn't glow as well there. I was like, oh, well, this is going to be troublesome, but
just Fable Passage.
That.
So yes, that's dealt with. That is a very, very good card to have off the battlefield. And another sword coming on top of the library.
A shrug.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Complain about that when there's no threats on the board. Ooh, yeah, that could be brutal. With the 1 green mana, and this is open deck list, we know that Run Afoul is available, and that would cause a bit of a problem there for Andrea Mengucci.
Yep, so very cleverly holding on to Galazeth for the time being until he's able to protect it. Here comes Polukranos Unchained once more on the stack. This time, Andrea Mengucci is considering the sword coming.
Really interesting here. The reason we're considering Saw coming instead of what would seem more obvious Essence Scatter, since it is a creature, is the converted mana cost there. Being able to maybe go Galazeth, Prismari, and then have 2 mana open to Essence Scatter a creature, even if Run Afoul gets hit on the Galazeth, is a little bit more valuable to Andrea than just being more efficient with your counter spells, I would say.
Yeah. So still being able to make sure you don't fall too far behind if your Galazeth is countered or killed.
Exactly.
counters an Abzan. Not the kind you're thinking of.
Exactly. And now Andrea Mengucci not drawing lands, which you do want to land at this stage of the game, but when you're drawing just straight gas, I think it's completely fine. And Andrea's not too upset about how this game's going so far.
Yeah, like he's not finding, consecutive land drops here, but also you can't feel too bad for him. He's got counter spells, he's got removal and Bone Crusher Giants and Frostbites. He has adventure creatures he can dump on the board whenever he wants, but you can see he's biding his time. He's a game up. He doesn't have to be the one too stressed here about ensuring the victory.
100%. And just, we're at the precipice of these Alrund's Epiphanies chaining together and just dealing an absurd amount of damage. If we can get a creature on the battlefield, even something like Brazen Borrower, 2 Alrund's Epiphanies, adds up quite quick when you have at least one creature attacking uncontested.
Yorion Sky Nomad, the sad Sky Noodle. Unfortunately, nothing to blink because everything's died so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend blinking the food out either, Ailey. It's not it's not ideal. It doesn't create more food or something like that. They're just gone.
Maybe if Yorion's on a diet, you could consider it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well, then that's fine.
And let this resolve here just because we are able to stomp and frostbite here to deal full 5 damage and leave the valuable counter spell for a later time. I love that play from Andrea Mengucci. That's a few too many tomes at this
Oh my goodness. I mean, like you said, they can keep digging, find a land off of this. But the one thing I really appreciate about players of this caliber is seeing the better option. Because 90% of players would probably have gone, oh yeah, just counter that. Yeah. Whereas there are other ways around it and better ways, because at that point you have a target for those removal spells. So kill it there and then you have your Essence Scatter saved for something later.
Yep, absolutely.
Ooh, icky. At this point, though, I bet he wishes he had a Frostbite.
Yeah. Magistrate is pretty good. Now, Andrea Mengucci looking at Magistrate just to make sure he can play lands off this. And he can. Playing lands instead of casting them. That is the big difference here. We saw this from Showdown's round 1 as well, where you can play the lands off it, but you cannot play the spells.
Yes. Important wording difference there.
Exactly.
Faceless Haven's going to be the land for turn. Frostbite in hand to take care of that Magistrate if and when he needs to.
Yep, and Frostbite being really the key card, and one of the main reasons to be playing Snowlands. Faithless Haven is great as well, but turning your shock into just a lightning bolt for creatures is a really big deal. And lightning bolt was deemed too good for historic even, and most of the time when you play Frostbite, you're caring to go at creatures. So being able to have access to that type of card in standard is very strong.
Feels bad, cries in mono red.
Yes.
Here's another Gilded Goose from Ken Yukuhiro, making all that delicious food for the Wicked Wolf to munch on. But it's going to be Sky Noodle number 2 who hits the battlefield and will be able to bounce a couple of things this time around, unless, of course, Andrea says, nope, no thank you.
Yeah, the main difference between this Yorion is just being able to blink Binding and taking out Tome. You just don't want that kind of free value. And I suppose a minor difference where Andrea Mengucci could kill the other one and can't kill this one. So a lot easier of a counterspell choice. And now we're online. Now we got 7 mana. If Andrea wants, he could just go all runs into all runs. I kind of expect we're going to see something like Galadas Prismari or even like Frostbite the Magistrate and then start casting adventure creatures, aka establish a board presence and then do Alrund's Epiphany. Yeah. It's a big difference between getting further ahead with that many birds and just winning the game with a string of turns.
Yeah, the only downside to this turn is, unfortunately, there's no backup in terms of counter spells for Galzeth Prismari. So we know that there's one green up. He's got to be suspecting Runafowl. Is this a risk he's willing to take? Yeah,
he's been expecting Runafowl this entire game. Ken has played pretty obviously that he's had it, kind of stopping that very powerful play of Galzeth Prismari, getting a treasure and then having Tome plus a treasure to have counter magic open. He's been playing around that. And And Ailey, I wanted to bring something back to what you were saying in the pre-show. Were you excited to not have a bunch of turns in a row? Because I think you're not going to get your wish on this.
Well, that was more aimed at historic. But,
oh, okay.
yeah. You know, you're not going to get away from it, I guess. So, yep.
There were some turns being taken at that Strixhaven Championship, that's for sure.
There sure were. Here we're going to see Frostbite in response to Elite Spellbinder. So, bye-bye to you, Mr. Magistrate, as Palavitor Damadorosa hits the battlefield. And we'll take a peek in hand, seeing the dastardly plan of Andrea Mengucci and 2 Alrund's Epiphanies.
Yep, and with losing Draneth Magistrate, it went from this card being phenomenal against Andrea Mengucci to just being okay. You know, 3-1 when you're at 23 is not devastating or anything. So it should be okay here for Andrea Mengucci.
So one of the extra turns is going to cost 2 mana more. And man, this wolf is just hanging out, is waiting to pounce.
Waiting to fight something, and even just getting Wicked Wolf on the battlefield. If Ken knew it was going to resolve, he'd be happy to jam it right here, just because that with 3 food and the fact that these Izzet decks just cannot really deal with Indestructible very efficiently. You know, being able to bounce it with Brazen Borrower, which we already saw Andrea Mengucci take out a couple of them because it's not that great of a card, but it does answer Wicked Wolf, which can be scary.
What's of more value to Ken Yukuhiro here? Because he can either cost the Polukranos from the graveyard, or he can cost the Wicked Wolf.
So the big question here is, if you cast Polukranos, it's probably still going to eat up that counter that Ken knows about. But then the next turn, Andrea Mengucci can go Galazeth Prismari and then cast a couple other things as well. And he's just weighing right now, is that okay that I put the Run Afoul shield down for this turn, or do I want to throw Wicked Wolf in there and get that countered? You'd much rather have Polukranos get countered, because at least in like 3-4 turns, whenever we fill the graveyard again, you can try again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird dynamic here. But the one thing I will say for casting Polukranos is you don't run into the nightmare scenario of going Galazeth Prismari into Alrund's Epiphany. We just don't quite have enough mana. Even if we top deck a land, that's only 6 after you cast Galazeth. So I like the risk here, because you don't need Run Afoul right away.
No. As suspected, Disdainful Stroke will take care of Polukranos. So here comes Brazen Borrower as the follow-up. Another 2 3-1s get to stare at each other in the air. And a Frostbite off the top will be able to get rid of one of these flyers on Yukuhiro's side of things.
Interesting draw here. Now Mengucci has a bit of a tough decision, because he no longer has any counter magic to be able to fight against the Wicked Wolf or any other powerful card that could be coming off the top. So now, you know, you have a real decision. Do you want to Alrunds to maybe just draw another card and maybe draw some interaction? Or do you just want to keep playing things and hope whatever Ken plays is not too devastating? And it looks like Andrea's just like, all right, shields are down. Do your worst. This is the first turn that Ken has had available to just, you know, play whatever he wants, and it's going to be a decent turn.
Tangled Florahedron was the draw there, but Ken Yukuhiro is far more interested in this Wicked Wolf, which will be able to come down and fight one of these creatures. And the question is, which creature are we going for? You got to think it's Galazeth Prismari.
I would think so. Some consideration to Bone Crusher Giant, because you have Run Afouls in your deck, but I think both flyers are pretty scary here. So I think the correct play seems like to kill one of those and then use the other Run Afoul on Brazen Borrower.
That looks pretty good.
Need be. Yeah.
And does have the mana to empty out his hand if he wanted to. Knows Ken Yukuhiro. Otherwise, could just run afoul and then create a food token on the end step.
Now, Andrea Mengucci did a great job this game of just waiting to deploy all these threats. He's had them in their adventure zone for so long, but he's prioritized 2 things. One, countering everything that is troublesome or destroying it with removal, and then just draw a card with Tome. Whenever he had the option, should I draw a card or should I play a threat? He always chose draw a card, because he just recognizes that this match is all about the Izzet deck being the control player and just stopping what Ken does, and then he can win later with these all runs Epiphany. Winning is kind of the secondary thought in this matchup.
Oh, goodness. So run afoul, it isn't a targeted spell, so it needs to go off now or risk getting the skies cluttered up with little pigeons from Elrond's Epiphany. Yes, I know they're ravens, but they fly, so therefore they are
Close
pigeons.
enough. Yep.
Pigeons, close enough, yes. So here comes Elrond's Epiphany. We're going to take some turns. And this is going to be a pretty nasty sequence of events here.
Yep.
For Ken Yukuhiro. He has to hope he can survive because there's 3 turns in a row here coming from Mengu.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're a land is not a bad draw because you get to draw with Tome and Alrund's Epiphany, and we might even like scry on upkeep. Probably not, since we can just draw again next turn. It looks like, I haven't done the exact math, but another Alrund's Epiphany, if we can find that, should be pretty close to GG, if not GG here.
This poor goose is going to be panicking. There is mana available to eat the food, so
Andrea
has
looking
to do
there.
16 points of damage through that blocker.
Yep. Andrea looking there, and he's 1 mana off, which he comes to the conclusion as well. Had the option to maybe animate Faithless Haven, get in there, and then you only have 6, or activate Tome and then Alrund's Epiphany. That is the big dilemma that Andrea is feeling here. And I would think Alrun into activating Tome seems better here. And I think that's what Andrea is agreeing with as well, but it is close.
So the attack goes through. Gildagoose jumps in the way of a 1/1. Here comes Alrund's Epiphany, number 2. And the draw here with the Maze Mine Tome. Let's see what we find off the top. It's another Bone Crusher Giant. So that'll get the Gilded Goose out the way.
Yeah, we can get the Goose out of the way. We can gain 3 life, get to 11. Faithless Haven, Bone Crusher Giant is 8, and then 4 1/1s. That's 12. So that should be it here for this match.
Turns out that taking extra turns is a pretty powerful thing to do in Magic. Also, Stomp. So Ken Yukuhiro does the maths as well, and he knows that Andrea Mengucci has the victory here. Picking up his first win of the weekend does Andrea Mengucci. He has got a lot of work ahead of him this weekend if he wants to get to the top of the standings here, my friend. So what did you think of that match? What do you think of the Blink deck?
You know, I love the Blink deck. You know me, I'm a Yorion fan, tried and true. Even have just artist proof by my desk at all times, just in case, you know, just to show off. But the really nightmare scenario matchup is these Goldspan Dragon counterspell decks, where you can apply pressure and cast a lot of counter spells. It's just a nightmare matchup, and it really played out that way.
Yeah, and the Izzet Tempo deck is definitely tried and trusted for a lot of players. It makes up a big share of the metagame here and in other tournaments that we've seen. So you expect to see it win, and it has picked up a win here for Andrea Mengucci as first of the weekend. When we come back, my friends, we will be having plenty more Magic action, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to MTG League Weekend. I am Ailey Loney alongside Corey Ballmeister, and we're about to see Corey's big bro go head-to-head with Seth Manfield in a Jeskai. Well, no, not Jeskai. It's a Teamer. Luca. I don't know. I haven't seen this deck before very much or very often. I lie, we have. Let's take a quick look at the deck list, friends, and give us a quick rundown, my friend. What is happening in this deck?
Quick rundown, as if anybody remembers the Luca shenanigans that we were going into Agent of Treachery. We're not quite that powerful for that 7-drop, but arguably maybe more powerful. We're just turning our adventure creatures into Coma. Make sure to sack one of your 3-drops and you're automatically going to get a Coma into play. And spoiler alert, this is going to be the same deck for each players. They test it together and we'll see who can get their Coma on faster, either my big bro or my good buddy. So I don't even know who I can root for this.
Well, you should probably root for your brother, you know, considering he's in the same house as you and could inflict bodily harm if he so choose.
That's true. That's true. He is downstairs. All right, go bro. Go bro.
Well, let's take a look here. There is a big difference in the points, 49 points to 39. So Brad Nelson has plenty of work to do, and Seth Manfield is going to want to keep that lead and improve upon it, as we are going to join here in game number 3. Seth Manfield and Brad Nelson with 1 game apiece, as we take a look at their sideboarding decisions, pretty much exactsies, as we jump in to the 3rd game here.
Yeah, and both of them testing together the only 2 Teamer Luca decks, and they both 0-2, so you got to think they're not that excited about how they're doing. You know, I was talking to Brad in between rounds. He wished he played the Sultai Nest deck, which he was playing a lot in testing, and that deck is sweet. And then Seth, I think he's just making it a little easier on the competition. He wants a sweat. He wants a sweat. He doesn't want to just take this win like we're all predicting. He wants to lure us all in, and then, of course, take a world spot.
All right, full sense of security and all that.
There we go.
Some added anxiety for everyone. Okay. All right, so both players are getting a decent-looking starting hand. Bone Crusher Giants ready and waiting to stomp on the very first Edgewall Innkeeper that hits the battlefield. But, you know, both players, they understand that Stomp is a real magic card in this format, and will do just that. So they'll wait until turn 4 where they can deploy an Edgewall Innkeeper with an adventure creature, no doubt.
Exactly. No reason to play into removal here. And while the 3rd A Crow and War picked up by Brad, this card has got to be pretty good in this matchup, just being able to actually deal with Coma, right? Like one of the very few answers to deal with it. And it makes it pretty tricky. You either have to bounce the Coma and recast it with like a Brazen Bar, or you bounce the A Crow and War and try to get there. But a nice sideboard card, but I don't know if you want all 3 in your hand at one point.
So here we're going to see the Edgewall Innkeeper come down, along with the Bone Crusher Giants. Will get the card, but the Edgewall Innkeeper will get stomped. And there is another copy of Luca for Seth Manfield, so he's almost ready to rock and roll in terms of getting Coma out. But like you mentioned, there's 3 A Crow and Wars just ready and waiting for that powerful Serpent.
Yeah, Brad is ready and waiting and almost taunting Seth at this point, be like, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and Coma, make my day.
Now, the question is, does Seth Manfield just run it out? YOLO.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, I mean, you still get a Serpent out of it during Brad's upkeep, but then you get your Coma taken away, and then I guess you can attempt to Luca again. But if you Luca your token, you know, you can just hit an adventure creature. So you really have to be Lucaing your 3-drops. An interesting dynamic where normally you just think -2 on Luca and you just hit the big thing, right? Like you do still got to jump around when your deck has different creature converted mana costs. An interesting side game that they have to play.
I mean, to be fair, though, hitting an adventure creature isn't the worst thing in the world.
Not the worst. But what if you hit an Edgewall Innkeeper? That one's not ideal.
Well, yeah, in terms of 1-drops, that one's not the worst in the world, but for sure, you'd like to hit that powerful 6/6, as we're going to see a Crone War come on down and start, what do you call it? Wrangling some snakes, I guess?
I like wrangling some snakes. That's a good one. Getting in there with the Edgewall Innkeeper as well, saying if you want to eat the Edgewall Innkeeper for free with your Coma Serpent, then Luca just dies. Seth might not care about that too much because one, he has another Luca in hand. Two, doesn't have that adventure creature to target to get another Coma immediately. So yeah, all of a sudden this is looking pretty bad for Seth and pretty good for my big bro.
And with a backup Luca in hand, it's not the worst thing if this one dies. But as you mentioned, there's no 3-drop for him to go, okay, well, fine, you can have that one. I'm going to go get another one.
Yeah, and Seth has to keep in mind, too, like, if he keeps Luca alive, what does next turn look like? Like, does he have any chance of keeping it alive the turn after? I doubt it. When we get another 3/3 Coma Snake, you know, and can tap things down if he wants to, maybe Seth is just realizing, like, I need to hit an adventure creature, and I need to use that last 2 loyalty on Luca and make another Coma and just hope that's enough. The multiple Akroan Wars in Brad's hand is kind of leading me to think no, no, it won't be enough, but we'll see.
Oh man, could you imagine another Coma comes out? Brad Nelson steals that Coma, has to sack one of them. So bye bye. There goes one of your snakes.
And then you have to figure out exactly which one is the Coma from the first Akroan War, because it's very important that Chapter 3 of Akroan War would give one back. And like, oh, here we go.
Okay. There's going to be so much thievery happening on this battlefield.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember the Jeskai Luca mirror matches. It was chaos, and it seems like this one is really no different. It seems pretty chaotic with everybody going back and forth here.
Oh man. Well, first things first, Luca is going to finds a Love Struck Beast off the top of the library, so we'll be able to cast that. But looks like we're going to kick things off here and play an Akroan War of Seth Manfield's own. Saying thank you very much. Give that back.
Taking Coma back, I believe, I could be wrong, I think Coma can tap itself technically. So if, you know, Brad was really feeling it, you could just tap your own Coma and then have the Akroan War Chapter 3 deal with it, or at least make Seth sacrifice another Serpent to give it indestructible. I think it just seems better to let it go back and then just go with the plan of Akroan War again and again and again until that Coma's yours.
It's like being in the middle of a custody battle here for this poor snake.
Yeah.
So what is the follow-up decision here for Seth Manfield? I got that Fire Prophecy.
Yeah, just to take out the 3/3 or the Edgewall Innkeeper, essentially just saying, do I care to even keep Luca around? Do I care to prevent it just in case the worst case happens? Something like Akroan War plus Brazen Borrow your token. Taking all of that into effect. But with that other Luca, the better card to hit with Fire Prophecy still seems like Edgewall Innkeeper to me. So I think Seth, goes with that to just make sure the card advantage isn't too real here.
Oh, and it's going to decide to send the other Luca to the bottom of the library and draw a card. Okay. Yeah. So, 2 Edgewall Innkeepers into a Love Struck Beast. That's pretty neat.
That was a big draw to just be able to have a Akroan War plus a Brazen Borrower active. Pretty valuable here.
So, Crag-Crown Pathway drawn here for Brad Nelson. Has a couple options available to him. The first thing he wants to do is get that snake back, I imagine.
Yep, I think step 1 is if your opponent has a Coma and you can do something about that Coma, you should do that.
You should get the Coma.
I mean, we saw just how insane Coma was in the Javier Dominguez Juza match when you're just casting it the old-fashioned way. When you're turboing it out, yeah, it seems a little bit more important to make sure you deal with it right away.
Indeed. And Brazen Borrower can take care of these little snake tokens. The serpents, make sure that there is no Coma when the snake does go back to Seth Manfield's side of thing.
All
right. Man,
right.
so many triggers going off here.
Yep, we're going to Chapter 2 now. of Seth's A Crow in War, so everything will have to be turned sideways from my big bro, and I don't think he'll be too sad about that forced ability. I think that was kind of already on his plan. But Brazen Borrower is a big draw here.
Yeah. Lost that Love-Struck Beast with Luca departing, and would be able to cast one of the Edgewall Innkeepers with the Brazen Borrower after bouncing something here.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like, do you want to bounce one of the Akroan Wars after?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think you just give up and you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna try to cast this coma later. It is causing so much chaos right now. And I honestly, that was really the draw that Seth needed. That was so huge. Otherwise, this coma wins the game outright. But now Brad's hand doesn't look that great. And that Akroan War can clean up every one of Brad's creatures right now. So at this point, Brad has to find something. It's almost like advantage is already back in Seth's favor just with that one draw.
So another Love-Struck Beast here for Brad Nelson. The first Akroan War will trigger. These creatures are forced to attack because of Seth Manfield's Akroan War. And in for a big chunk of damage there, down to 12 goes Seth.
And then I know we can't see the cameras here, but I just envision Seth looking over at the deck list after he draws his card, and he's like, "Yeah, there's 3 Akroan Wars. I should know that. That's our deck list. There's no way you can have the third one, right? Jam, coma, and oops, we're gonna find out that Brad does have the third one."
Oh, the attack of the purple squares there as all of the little snakes die. So that's one less Akroan War to deal with. Now we just have to keep track of the final one.
Yep. And chapter 2 from this other Akroan War is forcing this attack where the old Edgewall Innkeeper into the Love-Struck Beast is not the best attack, admittedly, but forced to get in there, and then Brazen Borrower will die as well. But now we'll see if Seth has any other option besides just to go for coma. And I mean, I don't think he does. I think this is an opportunity where you just shrug if you're like, yep, you got it. You got another Akroan War. Then you got it.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Impressive.
So coma back down on the battlefield. Edgewall Innkeeper is going to be the final thing that Seth Manfield does. So no more cards in hand for him, is putting all of his hope on this coma, which is going to get brazenly borrowed away with Petty Theft.
Interesting. You know, Brad chose to not just say, I'll take that, wanted to use Brazen Borrower in to essentially time walk. You just get to attack one more turn. You're pretty sure Seth is just going to cast it again next turn. And then his plan of take it next turn seems a lot better now that he's also presenting lethal. If that mountain was an island, Brad would have been a lot happier because you get down one more creature. But at this point, it's still advantage Brad.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so no second mountain to get these Brazen Borrowers online. What is the draw here for Seth Manfield? Another coma? Oh my goodness.
That could be good. If we have the time to live and get another coma, a coma fight. You know, we kind of saw how complicated those board states get, and really who plays it first has a large advantage. But when you also have some Love-Struck Beasts, that's an even better advantage.
Yeah, these 2 big chunky creatures in the way here of the snake just being able to force it to sacrifice the serpents. But that's a turn away, and also Seth Manfield's going to have to get through the Akroan Wars. The third one is going to come down here for Brad Nelson. The fourth one overall, if you're keeping track of both players.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can keep track of exactly how many comas landed on which side of the battlefield at this point. It was just too much. Too much. You know, Seth is just throwing his hands up like, really? Come on, all 3.
Oh, you'll love to see it. So coma back on Brad Nelson's battlefield along with the 2 5/5s. And this attack is going to hurt.
Me and Seth do share one thing in common when playing against Brad in bigger tournaments. We both lose to him often. Seth, every time he plays Brad, he's like, really? You know, even Seth, the most amazing player as he is, still has kind of that person who beats you often. And for both of us, it's Brad.
Yep. Unfortunately for Seth Manfield, he's not immune to Stomp as Brad Nelson swings in for the win there, able to pick up the victory with the 2 Love Struck Beast.